Okay, hi guys. So I'm going to be talking about a pretty important subject today. I think most people are aware that we are being exposed to high levels of radiation. I think that's pretty well known by everybody now. It's be very difficult to not know that. I'm going to try and avoid the word that starts with that and ends with a letter, but that in particular. People are aware that there's been a big rollout of that exposure to wireless radiation. So there's other exposures as well. Fukushima has basically done a huge amount of damage in the Pacific Ocean and any food that comes out of that. Um, and there's various other reasons why right now we're being exposed to massive amounts of radiation. And what I get asked a lot is how do I protect myself from that radiation? Now, I'm going to just mention a few things that I'm not going to be talking about. So there's lots of discs and gadgets and things which claim that they interfere with the frequencies of radiation and basically neutralize it or reduce it and so on. I've looked at a lot of those things. I've actually got some of them. Maybe they work, maybe they don't. I'm not sure. I do have a gadget that I plug in my bedroom, which is supposedly puts out a frequency to neutralize. Um, it's quite expensive. I think I paid about $500 or $600 for it. Um, anyway, maybe it works. I don't know, but I'm going to be talking about something that I know works, that's provably works. So I wouldn't discount all of those things as not working. I've spent money, a chunk of money, on a few different things that potentially will help. I just can't. There's not enough science for me to know for sure one way or the other. So I don't know about that. So, however, there is plenty of science on one thing that definitely works. Now, this is working in a different way to the gadgets, in as much as this is actually something which removes radiation from you once it's got into your body. Okay, so let's assume that these gadgets don't work 100% or they're not with you all the time or whatever, and you get radiation into your body. Now, there's a lot of women right now who are talking about menstrual cycles being all affected. They're putting it down to being exposed to people that have had the this. I don't think it's that. I think it's much more linked to radiation. Okay, so whether or not it is, we've definitely got a problem with radiation. So what do scientists use when they have a massive radiation problem? For example, I think most people will be familiar with Chernobyl, right? So that was a massive disaster, and there's been a number of others, big disasters with various. I'm being attacked by my kitten right now. He's attacking my foot. He thinks it's funny to claw me. Yeah, very good. So anyway, so Chernobyl. So what happens? What do scientists do? They certainly don't use any of these gadgets or shields or any of the things that we're being marketed with continually. They don't do that. What they did do, and by the way, Chernobyl, if you don't know it because it's quite old, it happened in 1986. Okay, so what they did do to mop up the radiation and to reduce exposure to the population that was there is they used zeolite, something that many of you will have heard me talk about for removing heavy metals and chemical toxins and so on, but you may not have heard about it being used in this sense. So what they did was they put over 500,000 tons of zeolite, which was airlifted to the reactor to absorb the radioactive metals. Okay, so that was a starting point, but they also fed cattle zeolite to keep the radioactive ions out of the milk. Okay, they fed children zeolite in cookies. Okay, to help reduce radioactive absorption. Okay, and they also treated the soil, which had absorbed the cesium and strontium. So they treated the soil with zeolite, and what they found was that the plants growing in that treated soil had no uptake of cesium or strontium. Okay, so That's what's used in the real world by scientists who are trying to deal with exposure to radiation. So we've now improved zeolite since 1986 because there's now nano versions such as the one that I recommend, PBX, um, which is as much smaller, and that enables it to get out of the digestive system and into the blood and throughout the whole body. So it's much more powerful. The smaller size exposes more surface area, so it's more powerful and it gets to more of your body, not just the digestion, as it used to be back in 1986. And in fact, even in this century, up until about 10, 15, 10, 12 years ago, when they developed this method of breaking down the zeolite into a size to expose more of its surface area and also to get it deeper. So there is tons of science, peer-reviewed science, on the effectiveness of zeolite, both out in the environment to clean up the soil, rivers, and so on, and in animals and humans to deal with radiation exposure. So if you understand that you are being exposed to radiation, and after you've taken all the precautions you can to limit your exposure, I personally have moved. I'm not talking about my current place, although that is that as well, but I moved some years ago to North Wales to get away from what they were putting up. And again, that stuff. Years ago, I had a smart meter, and I blocked behind that so that it wasn't penetrating from the back of the smart meter into my house. It was bouncing it out into the front where I didn't spend very much time. So there are things that you can do to reduce exposure, but you're never gonna stop it. It's just you can only limit it. So this is your answer to removing it once you fail to block it, avoid it, or whatever. Removing it out of your body. This is what scientists use to deal with radiation. Okay, so I highly recommend that you get yourself some PBX. I'm going to put a link below if you've never, the company that makes the one that I recommend, there's only a few companies in this space. You certainly don't want the synthetic version, which are known as TRS. That's one you want to avoid. But PBX is the one you want to go for. And I'm going to put a link below if you've never tried anything from Touchstone, the company that brings this to the market, then you can try this. It's usually $64 ish for a bottle. You can you can try it with an 82% discount, literally, and free shipping as well. Okay, so you can get it for next to nothing just to try it and see how you go with it. But I can tell you it works 100% of the time. It's not. It's like a magnet and iron filings. It's not. Sometimes it's going to pick up the iron filings, and sometimes maybe it won't. Um, it's always going to do it, and zeolite is always going to be neutralizing radiation, heavy metals like mercury, arsenic, pesticides, herbicides, etc. So I highly recommend that you try it. But I think this might be the first time I've done a live actually talking about how it works with exposure to radiation. So hopefully this has been helpful for you. And as I say, I will put a link below this post. So God bless. Have a great day. Thank you.